to Granny's place. Take the time and space to give yourself a break. Here you'll find some love, music, laughter, and above. Oh, she'll dare to tell the truth. And so come to Granny's place and give your spirit a big boost.
Welcome to Granny's Place, a haven for love, entertainment, and uncommon sense. I'm Sweet Baby James, and I'm here to introduce you to Granny Rocks, and also tonight's theme. Can we trust anyone, including ourselves? What a surprising question. I thought at least I could trust myself. So anyway, here's Granny. Let's see what Granny has to say about it.
Well, I have been living through, and so have you, at least 1 week of absolute turmoil because we couldn't trust anybody. And we thought we could trust people, but then we found out that this one was contradicting this one, and that one was contradicting. And I mean, it was just like, oh my God. And you know how we felt? Terrible, because we were confused. We didn't know, should we trust this one? Should we trust that one? Should we trust this? Should we trust that? We're just like the stress is level. And who's going to find out next about what else was wrong that someone didn't tell us, or that they were wrong about, or whatever? So I'm going to talk about this, and I'm already in the place. You know what I'm saying? I mean, we are perfect timing. So I don't want to tell you about what it is that we've been going through this about, because we want to protect the innocent, the guilty, and everybody in between. But so let's say we were trying to buy a motorhome. Now, we're not trying to buy a motorhome. In fact, we're selling a motorhome. But I want to give you an example, right? So you want to buy a motorhome, you go out, you start to talk to the salesman at one company, right? And they say, this is the best one because it has this kind of a roof, right? And that makes it so much better. And you say, oh, well, that makes a lot of sense, right? Not that you know anything about roofs or rubber or fiberglass or anything like that. You say, well, yeah, that really makes sense. Okay, well, and he was such a nice guy, wasn't he? I mean, wasn't he really nice?
Seemed very sincere.
Very sincere. So then you think, well, you know, this is a lot of money. I think I better do a little comparison shopping. Okay, comparison shopping. Oh, no, now we're really in trouble, because now we're to the next guy, and he says, oh, you don't want that brand because of their roof. I mean, their roof leaks. As we all know, that kind of roof, that bibbledy-bobbledy kind of roof, leaks. And you say, oh, no. But he was so nice, James. I mean, the new guy was nice.
Sounded like he really knew what he was talking about.
He really did sound. So it's like, okay, so now you're really getting crazy. So, all right, what was it? All right, who are you supposed to believe? Who are you going to trust? You know, it's like this guy, this nice guy. And they were all so incredibly sincere. So what do? So then you start going crazy and you go onto the internet, right? And you go on the internet and you say, which is the better roof? The bibbledy-bobbly roof or the bobbledy-boobly roof, right? And then you find out, well, the thing is the bibbledy-bobbledy roof probably won't leak, but the other kind, you can stand on it, it won't fall through into the middle of the living room. I'm making all this up, right? Sure. Right? But, you know, so you say, now I don't know what to think. And then you see another article that says exactly the opposite. It says, no, this is the longer lasting roof. And we even have documentation that proves this. And so now you're trying to read and you don't understand a word of it anyway, right? Because they're explaining things in a way that's very scientific.
Now we have gobbledygook, too.
Now we have two gobbledygook, and now you don't know what to think. And so then you have to go to a third place, and I say, well, what kind of roof do you have? Oh, well, honey, we don't use roofs anymore. Roofs are so passé. I mean, you don't need a roof on a motorhome. No, instead you have a tent on top of it, and you ride down the road, and it's very long-lasting. And, you know, and when the birds shit on it, you can wash it. Do you see what I'm saying? All right, so now, who can you trust among all of those salespeople? Well, we've all had this experience, right? So you can all relate as we're getting started on the show about, you know, this salesman and that salesman, and they also seemed sincere, and maybe, and this is the worst part of it, maybe they are sincere because they have been told that this roof is better than that roof. And unless they've been in the business for 40 years, they might not have their own experience to judge it by, but they've gone to RV salesman school, and they know that this roof is better than that roof, is better than that roof, is not as good as that roof is. So that's what they think, but they don't know either. And even let's say you have a really experienced guy, right? And you say, well, I'm going to talk to him. And he's really an honest guy. In fact, he's a relative of mine, 3 times removed on my mother's side. He would not cheat me, would he?
I would hope not.
One would hope not, right? So now you go to him, and he tells you something entirely different about everything. And he's been in the business for so long, and you think, well, this is the guy I should listen to. Now, of course, you've heard rumors that he's a crook, but, you know, you're ignoring all of those rumors from other members of the family on the other side who may have had an axe to grind. So how do you know that you can trust what they say about him? And then it gets even more confusing because, you know, maybe he's absolutely right about these roofs, but his knowledge is 30 years out of date. And there was a time when that kind of roof really leaked, but now they don't leak anymore because they're made with popcorn, and as we all know, popcorn doesn't leak. I mean, now you know, right? You know what to do, right? Now, is this familiar?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
All too familiar.
And we're just talking about the salesman. Okay, now, supposing we complexify this because we decide to bring our own mechanic into the situation, right? Because, you know, we don't trust this guy, we don't trust that guy, so now we have our own mechanic. But actually, how much does he know about motorhomes? Well, you know, he worked on Aunt Sadie's Airstream 20 years ago, and she said he did a great job, right? Or he's great with your Corvette, which we know is exactly like a motorhome. So now we're still in trouble. Okay, now add to this, is your brain in disarray yet?
Well, what about friends and family?
Ha ha ha! So you start doing your own private research, asking everybody, going on forums, reading this, reading that. I mean, we just went through this with your flugelhorn. There were so many opinions on the internet, and who can trust can you trust the internet? You can't trust the internet. I mean, you don't know who's writing. So anyway, they could all be friends of the company, right, who said it, and so they're really messed up. Okay, but now you have the ultimate hexpert, your husband, who fancies himself, or your wife, who fancies herself a true mechanical genius who can see through all of this and will be able to figure it out. And now, not only do you have a nincompoop ignoramus on the job, possibly, but somebody who has to prove that he's smart, right? Because he doesn't want to admit that he has no idea about this at all. You know what I mean? Because now we have another angle. So the first angle that we've covered is about people who have a vested interest in convincing you of something, and they may not even be conscious of the fact that they're trying to sell you something. They may really believe it, or this is what they were taught by their bosses. They actually went to classes which gave them all this information so they could sound extremely experienced and intelligent, but maybe it's all lies, but they don't even know that it's lies, which is one of the reasons they seem so sincere. Or they do know it's lies, but their children are hungry, and you know, it's hard to be a commissioned salesperson, and so maybe they're not exactly lying, but maybe they're just omitting some information that they don't want you to know, right? Because they want you to buy their whatever it is, right? And now you've got them, and you've got your mate there too, who's going to stand there and argue, because your mate has to prove that he or she knows more than the salesman, because after all, we all know that salesmen are crooks, right? Even if they're not. And so your reputation depends on you looking more knowledgeable than somebody who's been working in the RV business for 20 years. So
having an egoic vested interest.
Exactly. So you see, there are agendae here. And the agenda could be to sell you something, to look smart, to defend the fact that they've sold 400 of these motorhomes already and they don't want to admit that they're shit, right? They've got to meet a quota. Okay, this is just one example, right?
Yeah.
And then the people on the internet, you say, well, they don't have agendas. Of course they do. They're either having an agenda to prove that they were screwed by somebody. Oh, my God, I should never have bought that piece of shit. Or they have to justify they were so smart when they bought their motorhome that they did their research and they are in the know. So here we go. So can you trust anyone? Is this getting a little bit scary? I mean, just a little bit. So we have the agenda, right? And the agenda can get in the way of the truth. But now let's say you have a perfectly neutral person. No agenda, nothing. It's like, okay, now they're the ones who are trying to do the research and try to understand. So they read 54 articles, and they come in and they tell you what they have read in 54 articles, and they think they know something. But maybe those articles were all wrong. Now, doesn't that happen? All right, supposing we're saying, oh, this is science. We can trust scientists, right? No, that was published 2 years ago, and that was disproven last year because they discovered the study was flawed. Or they've just made a new discovery. They've discovered that the reason that that planet was going like this was not because there was another planet there. No, it's because somebody had put bubble gum on the planet and it was sticking. So, I mean, it's like, oh my God, science, proof, what? Can you trust science? Well, it changes. I mean, they keep changing their minds. Oh my God, the black hole, the green hole, the whatever hole. The hole in your head? Can you trust science? Well, they try, at least most of them. But of course, there's also the possibility that this scientist has an agenda. And that agenda is he's just spent 20 years researching this and has finally come to the conclusions and has published a book, and his entire reputation and his pension depend on the success of this book. And now you come along and you have the opposite information, and you can prove that you're right and that he's 20 years out of date. Well, how do you think he's going to feel? Is he going to say, oh, that's fantastic. I'm so glad that you have disproved everything that I've been saying and that my entire career is now going down the toilet because of you. I love that. That is, I am just thrilled. So we have, you can be out of date. So maybe you can't trust somebody because they actually think they know, but don't.
Right.
Oh my God, how many people think they know and they don't?
That's almost everybody.
When I raised my children, I've learned that this is the way that you should discipline your children. When I was a child, they swatted me on the butt, and I advanced, and now I swat them on the other side of the butt. And, now I have to justify what I have been doing by telling you that this really works. This is a great way to raise a child because that's how I raised my child, or that's how my father raised me, or whatever. Perfectly sincere, right? But can you trust them? I mean, aren't they kind of like a little?
You can't trust your parents who care about you.
Oh my God, you have got to say that again. Can you trust your parents? Of course not. I mean, what parent doesn't have an agenda to make you quiet so they can go have sex and finally have a little time for themselves, or the parent has the agenda of looking good and wanting to impress everybody, and so they're telling you, of course you should go become a rocket science even though you have trouble with math. I mean, that's a very good profession, or you should become an accountant because that is truly
security,
and then you'll be able to support me in my old age. Yes, support me in my old age. Yes, I am totally objective, right? I'm totally objective. Or just because I have an opinion that I happen to think that being a cabinet maker is better than being a ballet dancer, especially if you're a guy. I just believe that. So I'm gearing you and I'm saying, hey, go that way. This will be so much better for you to be a cabinet maker, and I really believe it, right? So, should you trust me? People just don't know. Let's face the facts. We're all pretty darned ignorant. So why do we want to trust people? Because we know we're pretty darn ignorant, right? I just said we were, and we are. We are so ignorant. It's like, we know we're ignorant, but we want to hope that someone is not ignorant. Now, I'm going to give you another example. When I was growing up, we had the local doctor, Dr. Bienenstock, really nice guy. And you walk into his office, and there's a nurse there, right? And she has got on her white coat, and he has on his white coat. And this is back in the 50s. Of course, the doctor was a man and the nurse was a woman. And so, why do you trust Dr. Bienenstock? Aside from the fact that he has on a white coat, and he has an office, and it says, Doctor, the doctor. Well, because your parents have been going to Dr. Bienenstock for 40 years, and they trust Dr. Bienenstock. Now, do you know whether they trust Dr. Bienenstock because he actually cured them of something, or because their bodies happened to heal anyway, while he was giving them these pills that actually only ate their intestines out, but they actually healed, and so they thought that Dr. Bienenstock was a miracle worker, right? So, talking about can you trust your parents? Well, they have an experience, but their experience is limited. They don't know. Nobody knows. Now, okay, is this maddening already?
Yeah.
All right, now let's say we're talking about a medication, right? So, I have this terrible aching gallbladder. Not that I even know where my gallbladder is. So I have an aching gallbladder. So somebody gave me a pill, and the pain went away. So, was it the pill? Or was it my body? Or was it just the placebo effect? How do I know? But now I know because, see, I have experience. This is it. I know I can trust my experience, can't I? Obviously not.
Why not?
Well, because I took a pill and my gallbladder pain went away, but I don't know why it went away. So now let's say I have another attack of an aching gallbladder, and I go in and I take this pill again, and sure enough, the pain goes away again. Now I am absolutely certain that that is what has cured it. Actually, it was drinking the water with the pill that cured my gallbladder, but I don't know that. I've attributed this to the gallbladder, and now I'm going to go on national TV.
You attributed it to the pill.
What?
You said you attributed it to the gallbladder, but you
I attribute it to the pill. So I'm going to go on national TV and say, I am selling these little gallbladder drops, and I'm a very sincere proponent of gallbladder, pills, because they work for me, and I really mean it. But I have no idea what I just experienced, do I? See, all I know is two things happened at the same time. What is the cause and what is the effect? I don't know. No, all right, maybe after the 500th time. Maybe. But then it becomes the placebo effect. Oh, I know if I take this pill, I'm going to feel much better. Now, if I happen to have something that automatically heals itself, but I don't know that it automatically heals itself, I'm much more likely to believe that it was the pill. And maybe it was. That makes it even worse. Maybe it was the pill. Right? And then I buy stock in the company because I just love this pill. Multi-level marketing. Isn't that multi-level marketing? It's like, oh my God, I had that experience. I took something. It was a multi-level marketing thing. For 2 weeks, I felt way better, and then it all went away. But I couldn't admit to myself that it all gone away because so many things actually work for 2 weeks, and then they stop. But I was in deep because I was convincing other people that it worked, and maybe it did work for them, and then that's the worst because now it's working for them and it isn't working for me. So I don't know what to think about any of this. So anyway, now you get what I'm saying about Dr. Bienenstock? It's like we don't know just because someone has had an experience. So let's say, oh my God, if I take hundreds of hours of time to interview every patient that was seen by Dr. Bienenstock, I might get an idea that he's really helpful, but I don't know that because I trusted my parents. And I trusted my experience, right, with my little gallbladder pill. And, okay, so then I have an experience with men. Unfaithful. Unfaithful. Well, aren't all men unfaithful? Let's say I go out and I have another man unfaithful. Unfaithful. One more. All men must be unfaithful because every man I've been with has been unfaithful. And maybe it's true, right? And then I have my husband, of course, who is never unfaithful. And how do I know this? Because I haven't caught him. So, I mean, experience can really mess you up, right?
Yeah.
So now we're talking about why it's so difficult to trust anyone is people have different kinds of agendas. Ego agendas, either they want to, it could be something as simple as making money, or it could be something as simple as trying to look good, or, trying to justify what you've done in your life. I mean, all of these little agendas, and then we've had the people who that we don't know that they're ignorant, or that their knowledge is out of date, or all the reasons that you can't trust somebody, and that everybody on top of all of this has only a narrow vision of anything. We can't have enough experience to really come up with a definitive answer.
Including oneself. All of that applies to oneself too, I take it?
Absolutely, absolutely. We in particular, as individuals, cannot have enough experience. Oh, but we all know that illegal aliens are criminals. 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 And how do I know this? Well, I read it in Breitbart. or Donald Trump said so. Now, here it gets really, really sticky, doesn't it? We choose people to believe. And then we will not listen to anything that contradicts them. So, if Donald Trump is caught with his finger in the Russian pot, he is going to say, fake news! So if you...
Don't trust it!
Don't trust it! So if you, in fact, are one of his followers, you're going to believe him because everything that attacks him, you suspect because he's told you that he's telling you the truth. So now, what are you supposed to do? What?
What?
Have you been waiting for the what are you supposed to do? Well, I bet you thought there was going to be a simple solution at the end, like, well, there isn't. I think the first thing is to recognize how difficult it is and how foolish we are. Because what we need to do is start out by realizing that there's a million reasons that people cannot be trusted, some of which is simply their ignorance, their narrow experience, their agendas. I mean, there are so many reasons. Or they're just plain wrong. Or don't think very clearly. I mean, there's so many reasons, and this applies to us, of course, as well. So that means that if we're going to do something like buy a motorhome, we'd better do our due diligence, due diligence, due diligence. You know what due diligence means? Work your ass off. Read everything you can. Ask everybody you can. Get frustrated, be upset, discover that you can't get any answers, but at least you will be an informed ignoramus. That's how I feel when I'm talking about things I have no knowledge of, but that at least I'm making some kind of an effort, right? But now let's say I want to go buy a basketball, and I say, oh my God, there's 10 brands of basketball, and I don't know which one to get. How many hours of due diligence do I need to do before I go make a decision and buy this basketball? Maybe I should just listen to the guy in the store. In that case, well, hey, it's a basketball. But if you're buying a motorhome that's going to cost you $100,000, you better do some due diligence there. So, okay, but now let's say that basketball, you're buying it for a championship tournament at your school. You better do some due diligence. You got to find out whether this basketball bounces better than that. I'm making this up. I don't know anything about basketballs, right? But you get what I'm saying, right? Because sometimes it really matters, because otherwise it's overwhelming. So the first thing I want to say is do your due diligence, but you have to choose what you're doing due diligence about, because we could spend our whole lives researching, getting nowhere, never doing anything. You know, you never go out to play basketball because you're too busy researching basketballs. So, I hope that's helpful. And the other thing I want to say about this, don't be disappointed when people don't always know or can't always tell you, because life is always changing. That's the way it is. It's like, get over it. Living with Reality, on our website, theinnerrevolution.org, Path of Not Knowing, Platform 8, Becoming Not Knowing. Right. Like, okay, we have to relax around this. But the final thing I want to say about, I can't believe that the time has flown. I feel like I just got started. And of course, you can't trust Granny Rocks either, right? Ultimately, you have to have some kind of faith, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And what is faith? It doesn't mean that you trust everybody. Oh yeah, somebody said, I trust God. Oh really? Oh really? Yeah, God never gives you more than you can handle. Oh, really? What about those people who are homeless? What about the people who are in mental hospitals? What about the people with PTSD? What about the people who've lost their legs and can't function? What about the people in nursing homes that are just falling apart, degenerating? What about the people who are taking drugs just to make it through the day? So no. So I'm going to tell you that there's a different thing, and it's called faith, and that doesn't have anything to do with trusting God or anything else. It's just a state of mind that allows you not to be paralyzed. It's like, I have faith. Somehow this is going to work out. So I'm on the floor, and my arm is broken, and I'm waiting for the ambulance to come, and I wish I were in hell, because that would mean that I was dead, and I wouldn't have to go through this anymore, whatever, right? Somehow I know it's all going to be all right, even if it isn't. But what that does is...
But help is on the way.
Help is on the way. I always think tomorrow will be better. Faith in myself, faith in love, faith in life. Just like, what does it even mean, right? Faith that I will be able to get through this somehow. Faith that I have a destiny. So here's the bottom line, guys and girls. I have a destiny. That means if I buy the worst motorhome on the planet, it's okay. I was supposed to buy that motorhome, right? Right? Rationalization. This is a very important part of living, of being sane in this world, that I can say it was an experience, I'm going to learn from it, and I'm going to try to love everything that I do, whether it works out or it doesn't, and just a faith is a state of mind and heart where I can still be happy while simultaneously being honest. Come to Granny's Kitchen. Let's talk about this tonight. Instructions are right there in the post, and we will see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. See you then.